Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at something that's really changing the game for knowledge work, large language models. We've got a pretty unique view today, actually, based on two surveys from a big international tech company, one from summer 2023, the other from fall 2024.
Right.
So our mission, you could say, is to track the trajectory. How are people using LLMs now, and what do they expect or hope for in the future?
And this is super relevant for our audience, the experts listening in. Understanding these trends is key for, developing and rolling out these LLM tools effectively in work settings.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the source for this, it's a research paper called Current and Future Use of Large Language Models for Knowledge Work. It's by Michelle Brockman and her team at IBM Research.
Okay.
They basically tried to answer three main questions with these surveys. First, what are knowledge workers actually doing with LLMs right now for work, for personal stuff, and how are they kicking the tires? Second, what do they want to do with LLMs for their jobs in the future?
Right, the wish list.
Pretty much. And third, how does LLM use fit into, bigger workflows, especially when working with others?
All right, let's dig into that first question then, the current state of play. What did the surveys actually reveal about current LLM use?
So they basically found four main buckets for current work usage.
Yeah.
Creation, information, advice, and just starting to see some automation pop up in that second survey.
Okay, 4 categories. Let's start with creation. This sounds like a big one.
It really was. Especially in that first survey back in 2023, creation was the most common thing people mentioned, no matter how much they'd used LLMs before.
Interesting.
Yeah, mostly it was about generating first drafts. Getting something down on paper or screen, things like code snippets, email drafts, maybe outlines for blog posts or marketing stuff.
So like a starting point generator.
Exactly. The idea wasn't perfection, it was just getting started. They gave an example of developers using it to generate unit tests, even with the mock data needed.
Okay. Overcoming the blank page fear.
Precisely. It's about jump-starting the process.
Makes sense.
And the other part of creation was idea generation. Brainstorming design ideas, research angles, maybe fleshing out user personas, or just, getting suggestions for titles or keywords.
Right. But was it all smooth sailing? Any downsides mentioned?
Yeah, there was a catch. Some users felt the creative writing lacked, originality. They described it as a bit generic, maybe too tidy. It missed that spark, that unexpected twist you sometimes need for real innovation.
I can see that. Efficiency versus true creative spark. What about using it for creation outside of work? Personal stuff.
Yeah, personal use kind of mirrored the work stuff.
Yeah.
Generating ideas for travel plans, recipes, workout routines.
Okay.
Interestingly, the folks who were just trying it out, the Tried It group, sometimes used it for more specific or maybe even sentimental things like writing kids' stories or drafting speeches, eulogies sometimes.
Wow. Okay. So moving to the second category, information. This feels like a natural fit for LLMs.
Definitely. Getting and processing information was super common, and actually its frequency jumped up noticeably between the 2023 and 2024 surveys.
Oh, interesting trend.
Yeah. It covered a few things. One was just basic search-finding facts, specific details, even on really specialized work stuff like, say, security protocols.
Right.
Then there was learning, using the LLM to get a handle on a new topic broadly. The paper mentioned someone learning about Kubernetes this way.
But always with that grain of salt, right? The accuracy issue.
Absolutely. Crucial point. The risk of getting wrong information is always there. But the increase in using it for information in 2024, that signals, growing trust, maybe, or at least acceptance as a go-to source, even with the known flaws.
Yeah, that potential for hallucination or just being plain wrong is a big asterisk. What else falls under information?
Summarization was another key one. Boiling down longer stuff, like summarizing public website pages was a common example. And that increase in summarization use in the second survey, it probably links to the models getting better, bigger context windows, maybe.
So they can remember more of the document they're summarizing?
Exactly. Though, token limits were still mentioned as a problem for really long documents.
Right.
And then there's analysis. That was actually pretty rare in current uses, surprisingly. Oh, and one more thing. The beginners, the Tried It users, sometimes just asked the LLM questions to see how good it was. Kind of like testing its knowledge.
Using the LLM to test the LLM meta. Okay, third category. Advice. How are people using LLMs for guidance right now?
Advice was less common than creation or information. The main ways were first, basically fixing up existing stuff, like improving grammar or writing style, optimizing code.
Okay.
Though some people got frustrated when fixing grammar actually changed the meaning of what they wrote.
Oof. Yeah, that's tricky.
Then there was guidance, asking for recommendations on how to do something. And validation, checking if something meets requirements. That last one, validation, especially for code, started showing up more in the second survey.
So trust is maybe growing slightly, moving towards evaluation. What about asking for advice on personal matters?
Yeah, they came up. Some people used it for advice on pretty high-stakes personal stuff,
Hmm.
health questions, parenting, even real estate,
Whoa.
which, immediately flags big ethical concerns about privacy and
Yeah,
obviously accuracy. You really hope people aren't taking that as gospel.
absolutely. Definitely need human experts for that stuff. Okay, last category for current use. Automation. You said that was less defined initially.
Yeah, in the 2023 survey, automation wasn't really described as a current thing people were doing. But fast forward to 2024, and some participants did select it. So something's starting to shift there.
Early signs.
Right. But the survey didn't really capture the specifics of what they were automating yet. So it's kind of an emerging area to watch.
Got it. So that paints the picture of now. Let's shift gears to the future. What did people want LLMs to do for them down the line?
Ah, the future visions. They were definitely more ambitious, more complex, more integrated, and more specialized.
Okay. So in terms of creation.
Well, for creation, the hope is to move beyond just basic first drafts to generating much more substantial stuff. Think full technical documentation, complex test suites for code, spreadsheets, maybe even academic papers, user stories, presentations, detailed reports, even performance reviews were mentioned.
Wow. Okay. Still a first draft sometimes, but a much bigger first draft.
Exactly. The scope is expanding significantly. It shows people are starting to see LLMs as potentially handling core parts of their work, not just the starting bits.
That's a big leap. What about their future needs around information?
For information, the big dream is like super tight integration with personal and company data.
Yeah.
Imagine searching your internal knowledge base, your code repos, company policies, all just using natural language. People want smarter summarization too, not just meeting notes, but tackling complex things like architecture proposals, basically more context-aware search.
Right. And analysis. You said that was rare currently.
Yeah, but they want it in the future, like using LLMs to analyze JIRA data to see how projects are doing or spot potential issues.
So LLMs becoming part of the organizational knowledge nervous system almost. How about future advice? How does that differ from now?
Future advice gets much more personal and contextual. The code reviews, where the LLM actually looks at your pull request description in the context of that specific project.
Okay, tailored feedback.
Right. Or getting on-demand suggestions inside the tools you're using, like getting design ideas while you're building a presentation. And even more complex advice, like analyzing system logs to suggest fixes or giving feedback on project proposals, all based on internal data.
Very context-specific guidance. And the big one, automation. What's the future vision there?
Huge interest in automation. Nearly 70% picked it as a future desire in the second survey.
70%? Wow.
Yeah, and the range of tasks is broad. Everything from managing calendars and scheduling meetings to automated status updates, help with hardware design, tracking purchase orders, generating routine expense or time reports, even managing client contacts.
That sounds transformative, but also complex to implement.
Definitely. It requires giving LLMs access to lots of different systems via APIs and letting them interact with user interfaces reliably. It's a big technical hurdle.
For sure. Okay, so we have current use and future desires. How does all this fit into the bigger picture of, workflows and teamwork, RQ3?
Right. So the surveys found that when people did use LLMs for work currently, those tasks were more often part of a larger workflow and involved collaboration compared to personal use.
Makes sense. Work is often collaborative.
Yeah. But interestingly, very few people had actually used LLMs for multiple steps within the same workflow yet.
So still mostly point solutions within a workflow.
Seems like it. Examples included bits of software development or analyzing user research or debugging. And yeah, collaboration involved teams, different stakeholders. Before LLMs, these tasks were mostly manual.
Okay. Were there challenges popping up in these early collaborative uses?
Oh yeah, several big ones. A key issue was that LLMs don't always give the same answer twice, even with the same prompt. That lack of repeatability is tough for teamwork.
Right. Consistency is key.
Exactly. Trust was another one. People worrying about the quality or reliability of stuff their colleagues generated using AI.
Did you really write this problem?
Sort of, yeah. And just the practical challenge of integrating these LLMs smoothly with the tools and processes teams already use.
Those are major hurdles for teamwork. So how do people envision LLMs fitting better into future workflows?
The future vision is much more seamless. Integrating different kinds of LLM help across workflows. For communications, yeah, drafting emails, but also summarizing meetings automatically, scheduling follow-ups.
But with caveats.
Right. Concerns about how much editing is still needed, keeping your own communication style. For managing information, the dream is finding stuff across all platforms, creating central dashboards, maybe even tapping into colleagues' knowledge implicitly.
Interesting.
And then role-specific help. Tailored LLMs for technical tasks like code refactoring or bug analysis, and non-technical stuff like analyzing UX research and drafting the presentation. But always with the assumption of human oversight.
Human in the loop is still crucial.
Seems to be the consensus, yeah. These challenges and future hopes really point towards some key things for people designing and implementing these technologies.
Okay, let's talk implications. What should our expert audience take away from all this?
The study really points to four main things.
Yay.
First, the need to support specialized skills.
Meaning
LLMs need training on relevant, domain-specific info, and users need to know what data they were trained on. Transparency is key. Plus, maybe letting users customize models with their own role or company data.
Right, and maybe internal communities to share best practices.
Exactly. Social validation could help figure out which models work best for specific tasks.
Okay, support specialized skills. What's number 2?
Number 2, support integrated workflows and data. LLMs can't just live in a separate chat window.
Yeah.
They need to connect to the tools people actually use, and the data people actually have personal data, organizational data. Maybe things like visual programming tools could help users build their own LLM-powered workflows.
Empowering the end user. Got it. Yeah. Implication number 3.
Third, support worker LLM collaboration. The systems have to make it easy for humans to oversee and tweak the output. Quality control.
And the trust issue.
Yeah. Tackling that trust gap in teams is huge. Maybe clear ways to show what was AI generated, methods for verification.
Makes sense. And the final implication.
Finally, number 4, really dig deeper to support collaborative knowledge work itself. We need more research specifically on how teams doing different kinds of collaborative tasks can best use LLMs. How do you make them reliable and consistent in a team setting? How do they fit into collaborative tools? Lots to figure out there.
Those are definitely critical areas for development. Okay, to wrap things up, what are the main headlines from these surveys?
Well, in short, knowledge workers are already using LLMs, mainly for creation and finding info. But they want more. They envision deeper integration, much more automation, and specialized AI help tailor to their jobs and data. But getting LLMs truly embedded in collaborative workflows, that brings challenges around consistency, trust, and always needing that human oversight.
Right. So it really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? As these LLMs get smarter and more woven into how we work, how does that change what it means to be an expert or how we collaborate?
Exactly.
What new skills do we all need to learn to use these powerful tools well, while still making sure the work is high quality and we trust each other's contributions? Something to definitely keep thinking about.
Indeed.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Lots of food for thought there.